Hello and welcome to Shop Talk with Dan the Man. In today's video we're going to review this. This is Mastercraft's 9-inch bandsaw. Stay tuned to find out more.
Hello, if you're new to this channel, my name is Dan Shannon. I enjoy woodworking as a hobby and being out in the shop. On this channel, dive deep into my shop as we explore tools and tool reviews, as well as chatting about everything related to woodworking. If this grabs you by the tool belt, please subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this.
Hello and welcome to my channel, Shop Talk with Dan the Man. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. Today's video we're going to review this. This is Mastercraft's 9-inch bandsaw. And this also has a working LED light with a fence and also an extension fence. So we're going to get into that for the details. Let's go over the model number. The model number is 055-6794-4. So over the years, Mastercraft has made different models of this exact same bandsaw, and as far as I can tell, they just did a few upgrades, the LED light, maybe slightly better fence, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing that you're going to find on pretty much most bandsaws in this lineup. Now, before I dive into this bandsaw, I just want to say that this is an entry-level bandsaw. This isn't a industrial saw. It's not something that you're going to use for years on end. It's a very basic bandsaw, but for the average person, I've always talked about your shop and budget and what your needs are. And for myself, this will do just fine in my shop. And if I find at some point it doesn't carry the capabilities that I need, then I can upgrade it. So let's go into the features of this tool and what it has to offer, and then we're going to jump into some hands-on. So I'll put some wood through it, and then we'll finish with some final thoughts on this tool and what it can do for your shop. So let's jump into some features. Okay, so we're going to first jump into the front side of this machine and give you an idea of what you would purchase if you did buy this machine. So first you're going to see that there's a fence, sliding fence on this tool, and of course you have your tape here on your table that you can slide your fence, and it'll give you an accurate measurement. So if you put it on 4 inches from the blade to the fence, that would be your 4 inches. So pretty good measurement. It's good that they have the tape right on the table. So if you slide this off, you'll also notice you have a small miter gauge on this saw as well, onto the far right hand side. And what this allows you to do is you can change your different degrees up to a 60 degree. So if you're cutting something, either trim work or just a small board, and you need a different angle, you can just loosen this, change your angle, and put your board on, and of course slide through the blade. So pretty typical setup for one of these saws. Definitely something I enjoy using, especially if I have to cut little pieces of trim. You have a very squared off surface, and as you run it through, it keeps it nice and straight. So I really appreciate that Mastercraft offered this small miter gauge. All right, so you can see here that we have the blade guard. So on the back side, I'll show you that later, but on the back side there's some knobs to change that. So on the front here, you'll also notice there's 2 doors and thus protect the blade. So to remove, to open these rather, there's 2 tabs. You just pull out and then bring it forward, bring it back, and that'll give you full access to the inside wheel. And on this wheel, you'll see that there's a blade resting, and this top knob is of course for your adjustment for your blade. So a lot of times your blade with both wheels, if it becomes slack, you'll have to change the tightening tension on your idling wheels. So on the bottom, we'll see it's the same thing. Pull out, bring towards you, and then open the bottom cover. So you can see access to both top and bottom idling wheel. It's called a tire that runs around the wheel, and that's what goes between the wheel and the blade. So sometimes these will get marked up and you have to replace them, but depending on your tension and how you run your machine, they should last for a long time. I don't remember changing mine ever, so it's great to have that part that you can swap out. And of course your blade comes down through, and I'm going to loosen the back knob here, and then this raises and lowers your guard, the side knob, so you have access to your blade. Now with your blade, this should open up. Yeah, there we go. So you see here there's 2 adjustment washers. So these are little wheels, and what these do is they keep your blade from moving back and forth. You can go in the manual, and actually there's videos of how to do a full setup on your blade to make sure that it's not moving back and forth, and there's enough adjustment there. So you have your 2 wheels, and then there's a back piece on here that keeps the blade forward. So there's a whole bunch of adjustments going on here, and I would recommend maybe going online and checking out a different video for adjustments, or checking out the user's manual for that. And down at the bottom, it's pretty straightforward as well. There is a belt here that connects to your motor that runs this bottom wheel, and of course your blade attaches to the top, and that's how it moves. And then your dust collection, there's a port at the very bottom. So if this gets built up, you can see that I've been using it, or there's some sawdust there. You can just take your shop vac and always make sure it's unplugged before you open any of these doors, just because you never know, like the switch could turn on or whatever. Like just be cautious as a safety. And so there's your dust port for your shop vac. So you can either hook the shop vac up to the back, or just hose it out every once in a while with your shop vac. It's up to you, your preference. So that's it for the front. Also on the front, you'll notice you have your on and off switch for your unit to the far left, and then the top switch, that is for your LED light. So there's an LED light in here just to shine some light on your work surface. So as you're passing a board through for a cut, it kind of lights up, and it's quite nice. So that's a nice feature. Mastercraft, thanks for doing that. So let's look a little bit more at the table here. You notice, it's a pretty good size, pretty good work surface, but a lot of times you'll have a piece that'll be a little bit further. So there's actually an extension table on here. There's 2 butterfly bolts underneath. You just loosen them, and your extension table comes out. Now that's not a whole lot of distance, but it does give you that extra length. So when you're cutting a bigger work piece, you have a little bit more surface area to work with. So I thought that was a nice touch, Mastercraft, on adding that extension piece. Well, let's jump around to the back. There's some more adjustments back there. Okay, here we are on the back side of the bandsaw. You notice there's a whole bunch of different knobs on the back side. and these are all adjustments for your saw. So at the very top, you notice I mentioned your tensioner adjustment for your wheel, your top wheel. And this leveler here, it has directions right on the back, which is really nice. A lot of times you don't want to run to your manual every single time you need to do something. So it's really nice that there's an adjustment lever here with directions. So if you want to loosen your blade or take it off, you bring this all the way down and it will drop your top wheel, and then you can remove the blade. And then this here is also another adjustment. I would recommend, this is for your wheel, I would recommend going to the user's manual for any of these types of adjustments, especially these finer adjustments. It worked well when I got it from Canadian Tire in the box, so I wouldn't touch it unless you need to. As far as your tensioning and all that, you could break the blade or it could cut into your tires that are around your wheels. So just keep that in mind. This is your adjustment for your guard. So you loosen it. This is your locking knob. So you just turn it and this will raise or lower this adjustment knob on the side. Once you get it to the spot you want, then you just lock it back up again, so it can't go up or down. All right, so let's stray downward. So you'll notice down here, there's a bunch of different things going on. It might look a little confusing at first, but basically, this is your adjustment knob, and this is your locking lever. So you have your table, and a lot of times you're going to be cutting things on a flat 0 degree, but sometimes you want to do a 45 cut. So you can either do a 45 by using your small miter gauge, turning it to 45 and then running it through the blade, or you can actually tip your table to that same degree. That's very easy to do. You have your lever here that loosens your table, and then your adjustment knob that'll change the pitch. So you can bring it to whatever angle that you want, and once you find that that's a perfect angle for your cutting, and of course it tells you the different degrees along here with this red marker. So right now it's at 40, and if I wanted to bring it to 30, etc., and once you get it to your preferred, so that's 30, you just lock it in place. Table's good, it's not going to move on you, and then you can run your piece through. So very straightforward. I think Mastercraft did a great job with this setup. Now, sometimes I will admit, if this tool is up against a wall and you're kind of just doing small cuts, it is a pain, like you're trying to figure out like around here, like what's going on. So it takes a little bit to get used to. It's not too heavy, you can move it, and it also has a nice support arm here on the base, and what that allows is it won't tip for safety. So if you're running something through, it might be a little top heavy. So this is just a little extra protection for to counter out that weight balance. And here is the dust port that I mentioned earlier when we were out front for cleaning out your sawdust. So you can attach a hose, and of course your motor that runs your unit. So that's built right on the side. And there is some adjustments here. I'm not really sure what that is. I didn't get into that, but I would say that's your bottom wheel. If you need to adjust that at any point. But whenever it comes to adjustments on tools, it's very recommended you go back to the user's manual, because like say for example you had too much tension on here, it might make the tool very unsafe. And one more thing that I didn't mention on the side, I'll swing the saw around, is there's this little window here, and this is your alignment window for your blade. So as it's running around on the wheel, you can see where the blade is, so whether it needs to come more towards you or away, you can see the indicator on the side about that. It does also come with a push stick that hangs off to the side. So there's a push stick that you can use, which is nice. So if you're running a board along the fence, you can finish it up with the push stick and follow it through, so your fingers aren't that close. All right, so we went over the features of this. So let's put a couple boards through and show you how it works. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do some hands-on with this tool. So what I recommend starting off, you want to make sure whatever piece of wood you have, just a good safety overall tip. Make sure your guard is the right height. So if this piece is this thick, you can kind of gauge from your guard from the side how high you should have it. So I like to bring it down very close. You want it to be able to pass through just fine, but you also don't want it too high up. So if we had it this high up and locked it in place, that would not be a good idea, because there's too much play in the blade for your cut. So if you're trying to get a straight cut, it would be a little wonky. It also is a safety thing. So if it's nice and low, of course, you know, your fingers are not gonna hit the blade. So just a couple little tips there. When it comes to using a bandsaw, you always want to make sure, you know, A, you don't lose a finger, and B, your cut at the end of the day. Yeah, if you're going to make these curved cuts, but you see how that's nice and straight. If the blade was too high without the guard, you would see a little bit of a wonky cut instead of more of a straight cut, if that makes any sense. So we got the guard where we want it, and then we're going to lock it in place, which is on the back. And you just you can test it as well. Just do a little test just to make sure it's not grabbing. And then you can turn on your LED light. So you can see here there's a nice LED light that shines so you can see your work. And then yeah, just fire it up. So as you can see, that cut through very easily, no problem at all on this little block that I had. Very, very easy. I'll do another cut. Cut that no problem. Very clean, very good. No issues. I didn't hear the motor bog out or have any resistance when I was cutting. So that's key too. Like if you find cutting anything bigger, thicker wise, like this piece of 2x4, you might notice, you know, it's a pretty good difference in size. And of course the motor on this and the cutting capabilities might have a little bit more hard time. We're going to put through this next, and I'll kind of give you an example of that. But you never want to push the motor beyond its means. So just take your time, take it slow, listen to the motor. If you feel that it's humming down and bogging out, you know, maybe back the wood out slightly and, you know, just kind of play it by ear like that. I would recommend. So just loosen the back tightening knob again, raise up your guard. And like I said, you know, just kind of bring it down, make sure your wood can move back and forth, and then tighten that up. I did make the mistake once of having this guard too low, and there's wheels, and it actually made, you know, some marks on my wood. So you don't want it too low, just enough to make the cut. So let's fire this up and see what we'll do. No problem. cut that. That's as smooth as butter. Brand new blade, of course, so you'll know some tear out and some issues later on if you have a bad blade. But yeah, that cut that very easily, no struggle whatsoever. You know, but I was taking my time. I wasn't rushing you know, the project. I wasn't rushing the wood. I just let it cut at its own speed without having any you know, extra effort. So you just want to take your time. I can't stress highly enough that you know, the tension on the blade and the motor only has so much horsepower, and you just don't want to bog it out and you know, make your saw work any harder than it needs to. So let the blade do the cutting. Last wood we're going to cut to show you the performance is a piece of red oak. So this is a piece of hardwood. We were using softwood before. So just give you an example of really the capabilities of this saw and pushing it more to its limits. So let's again check the blade guard, and you notice it's quite high because we were just cutting a 2x4. So we're gonna loosen the back knob and lower that until we get enough clearance. Tighten that again, and then we're just gonna pass this through. So let's fire it up. And as you can see there, cut that very easily. There was no effort. It made a very clean cut, worked perfect. So one more thing that we'll do for cutting, we'll do one with the small miter gauge for a cut, and then we'll also do one with the fence. So I'll put the fence on and I'll show you how both these do for cutting. Okay, so we got our miter gauge on. It's set to 0, which is the degree that we're looking for. This board is quite long. Most of the time I would never cut anything this big, but just to give you an idea of, you know, kind of the size. This is a 9-inch throat from the blade in, so we can only cut a max of 9 inches. I'm not going to do that. So this is just a practice. So before I turn on the saw and go, I'll notice that this guard is too low now. So I'm going to loosen it, raise it up, double check the clearance, tighten it up again. And then once I have it to the length that I want, then I can even use on the side here, it'll say 3 inches. You know, for the tape. I don't know how accurate that is. You might want to double check, but I'm going to run that through and yeah, see how it goes. All right, so just fire it up. So that's a nice cut. Looks pretty straight for the most part. I could put a square on that just to make sure. But I'd rather use a miter saw to give it a better, you know, 90 degree. But I mean, for the most part, that's not too bad of a cut. It's pretty straight. Like I said, I would have to put a square on there just to make sure I could use that in a project. But yeah, it's just to give you an idea of how good this miter gauge works when it comes to cutting. So you just make sure you hold on to it really nicely on the back side. Make sure that's squared up. You can also install, this might be a little carried away, more for table saw, an extra board. It's a little bit higher. There's actually slots for screws, you know, to slide in there and then tighten up. So you can do a bigger board if you wanted to, maybe cut it off there and then put the screws in. Just give you more height as you're pushing through. But like I said, that's more for table saw use, I would say. But like I said, preference, you know, it's up to you guys whether or not you want to do that. So just look at the miter gauge. Now let's slide over to the fence and do a rip cut. Okay, I have the fence set up to the distance from the blade over that I want for my cut. I got my piece of 2x4, and I noticed here, since I cut my last piece, the guard is too low. So I'm just gonna bring my board to the side, unlock the guard, raise it up, bring her down until I get it to where I want it, and make sure you have that clearance so that you're not having it turned on and then all of a sudden find out halfway through the cut, oops, I don't have the proper clearance. So in this case, you can use your push stick if you want near the end to follow the board through, but I would say for myself, I have more than enough space on this side that's away from the blade that I can keep it tight to the fence and just run it through with my hand. I have that clearance. If it was closer and the fence was closer, say this much, so like this is about an inch, you definitely want to use a push stick. That way your fingers would never contact the blade. All right, so now that I got my guard set up, my fence exactly where I want it, let's fire it up, see what it does. See there, that's not bad of a cut. You know, it's not quite perfect. You can put it on the table and kind of see that it's not quite perfect. What I would recommend is making sure your fence, before you run the tool at all, make sure everything's true. So take your fence and make sure that it's the exact 90 degree that it needs to be. If it's slightly off, you'll definitely see that it needs adjustment. Now, these fences are cheaper, so there's not a whole lot you can do with it. I thought about putting a board on it. That way, once the board is tight to the table, it will keep the 90 degree true. So you might have to play around with a little bit, as far as the fence goes. But I would say for what it is, the price point that this tool is, you get what you pay for, and quality wise, build wise, everything else. So let's jump into some final thoughts and I'll let you know what I think about this. Okay, so some final thoughts on this bandsaw. What do I like and what don't I like? Well, I like the price point. I mean, you can't really beat the tool for the price. So I got this on sale on a Black Friday for under 300 bucks. So in my opinion, for its capabilities, performance, I mean, you have to weigh everything tool-wise, its purpose, your shop, your budget, everything comes down to that. And for what it is, at the end of the day, bar none, it works great. The gripe that I would have, the only thing that I would have so far, and I don't have too many hours logged with this thing, but I would say the fence. That's the only frustration. It's not as accurate as it should be. You got to play around with it to make sure that it's accurate. For the day, I would recommend this Mastercraft saw. If you're just starting off, you need a bandsaw. It's a great addition to a shop. Especially myself, I didn't have one. So, this one, it came up for sale. It, kind of checked off the boxes that I needed for a bandsaw. Performance-wise, it's not an industrial saw. It'll never be. It's not built for that. But someone that's, picking away in their shop and has a hobby just for themselves and the odd project they're going to put through it. So Thanks for watching today's video, and like I always say, no matter how big or how small your shop is, just get out, enjoy woodworking. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, and have yourself a great day. And don't forget to click this video here.